All right, Mark. I really appreciate you coming on today. I've been looking forward to the show. I know we've been talking about it for a long time, so it's finally happening. Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, thanks for having me. It's pretty much the point where I'm at is for the past year and a half, 2 years. I've always watched the news. I watched the news going back to Bill O'Reilly. I've watched conservative. I watched liberal news. I watched everything in between, internet news. Mark Dice, that was popular. But I sat there and watched for the past year and a half all the coverage of the riots, the burning, the political coverage, the daily coverage with the White House, everything on Twitter, and I just found myself critiquing it so bad and so dissatisfied with how it was presented and the people that were presenting it. There's a handful of great ones too, but there's a handful. The rest is they're horrible. So I said, you know what? With today's times, you can grab a camera, you can grab your computer, you can go out there and do it better. So now I go out and get the opinions straight from the people, and I send it the other way. I take the people's opinions and post those,
Which is not something you see very often, to be honest with you. And I remember growing up, I wasn't like super into politics, but I started to get into it once I graduated high school, and nothing seemed like as crazy as things seem today. You know what I mean? Meaning like media being one-sided. Right. Both sides of the aisle. I know people say, like, I say on my show all the time, people know I'm a conservative, they know I'm a Republican, but even Fox News, I'm willing to admit that they're very one-sided to an extent, as well as NBC or CNN, something like that. So it's good to hear what the people that are out on the streets that me and you, we do our own research. Obviously, we go in more in depth. I do for this show, but these people out on the streets, they're just hearing, these mainstream media. They get their news from Facebook, maybe, or Twitter. So it's definitely interesting watching your show, hearing what these people have to say. So, like I said, I know I did the short little intro, but what exactly do you do, or what do you expect when you go and do your show with these people?
So I try to go out being informed, and what I don't want to do is, I'm a highly opinionated person, which is why I'm excited to be here, because for the first time, we might dive in a little bit into my
get to hear your side,
get to hear my side, which is so funny because there's moments, especially when we wrap it up with interviewing someone on the street, is then they want to interview me, and more than once I have to cut them off, and then once in a while, if it's appropriate in the context and the conversation, then I will tell them my opinion. But what I try to do is I try to balance that, because we all have our opinions, but I don't want to push my opinion.
Yeah.
So I think
which a lot of people do.
Right. Absolutely. So for me, it's exposing the differences through questioning. Find out where we separate. And the funny thing is that I sit there and I speak to a lot of people, and we agree on almost everything. And then it's almost this tiny little.
With the people you're interviewing?
Everybody, left, right. Dakota Meyer, he was a living Medal of Honor recipient for the Afghanistan war. I think he was the first one, living one, that received it in maybe 50 or so years. Don't quote me, but he's a big deal. And he said it. I'm going to butcher his quote, but he talked about. He said, I could go to Afghanistan, people that want to cut my head off and blow me up, and I can have a more civilized conversation than I can with someone in America.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy? So here you got this guy that wants death to him in the worst possible way, and he can have a respectful conversation. So I think that's what I want to do. I want to talk to people, especially those that disagree, because the last thing I want to do is walk around as opinionated as I am and be wrong at the same time.
Yeah. So I know you saying that, it just like jogs my memory a little bit, or jogs my thoughts. When I talk to people, everybody, I'd like to think most people are good at heart. So even since there's political issues going on, people with different opinions and stuff like that when it comes to issues, I think everybody is just trying to do the best for America, but the way to do that is the actual differences. For example, someone that's more liberal might want to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. I think that's not a good idea, and when people hear me say that, they're like, oh, you don't want people to make more money? That's like the exact opposite. I want people to make more money. I just don't think, I think raising it is going to do more harm than good. I also care for those people that are living in poverty and everything like that. I want to help them, but in my opinion and my research, it shows that that's not the way to do it. And they're saying, okay, well, in my opinion, this is the way to do it. So they're not morally wrong. It's just our methods are different.
I think right. I think that this is a rough way to put this, but I think that we are so safe and we're so protected, and we've reaped the benefits of safety and security and freedom so much now that we don't approach differences properly. In other words, everyone's so safe that people's feelings are put as a priority over the issues.
Yeah.
So that happens in the conversations. What you just described, they'll sit there and say, "Oh, you don't care about people." Oh, they always said the Republicans, pushing grandma off the cliff, worrying about Medicaid, Medicare, all that stuff. And I sit there, I said, come on, please. You tell me that half the people in America don't care about grandma. That's not the issue. So that's what I'm trying to do. Is I'm trying to maybe be careful with the feelings and still get to the issues.
Yeah, and that's across the board too. I mean, I like the fact that we're not like sticking to one specific thing right now. We're kind of talking generalized, but I'm using some examples. Just like the Black Lives Matter movement. There a lot of people that are like very far right and very far conservative think that the Black Lives Matter movement may be like anti-white, and that's not the case. If you talk to a lot of people, like close friends of yours that support that movement, you know that the movement is good at heart. It's just people have almost hijacked it, and then we only see the bad parts of that. Just like when people, on the left, they see people on the right saying all lives matter, and they see that as, yeah, but that sounds like you're anti-black or anti-BLM. That's not the case. I think everybody just sees equality and wants the same thing. It's just like I said, the method is very different, and that's where people don't see eye to eye, and then we're just like turning on each other in this sequence. And I think that's the fault of the media, to be honest. I think the media, and I think I told you this the other day when we were discussing something, and I heard someone say that even the political elites, if you will, and the media, they want to create problems so they can act like the hero. So they create issues among us and turn us against each other, and then they try to play hero.
Yeah, it's they're literally in the business of covering drama. So if there's no drama, they're gonna
and their ratings are go down.
Right, who's gonna watch? Right, no one wants to watch the sunny day. Yeah, you want to experience the sunny day, but no one's gonna flick it on. They want. I
like
problems.
happy stories, to be honest with you, but maybe just because it's so rare nowadays.
Yeah, that's probably why. Because the happy day becomes the quote unquote news. Like I said, this is a funny one. I remember everybody talking about, KKK, we're so racist, everything's out of control. And I said, if you go back in history, they used to have legit marches down the street with thousands. Yeah. I mean, thousands. Now you got 4 clowns on the street corner with some signs. They're reduced. I'm not saying they don't exist.
And
but the news
I like protesting. I just want to make that clear. I like that people are able to protest.
Absolutely.
That's what makes this country
even if it's offensive. Yeah. So, but again, if you have, it becomes news. It becomes news that there is a KKK rally, which, like I said, maybe I'm underestimating with 4 people. Maybe it's 14. Okay, maybe it's 24. But I tell you what, it's not 200, right? It's not 2,400. Yeah. And I think but when you put a label on it, right? When I just tell you that there's a big KKK rally. Well, what is a big one? What's a big KKK rally, right? So that's news. Now it's news. Oh my God, there's a rally in the town. Now,
you're saying like people wouldn't care if it wasn't.
I just created news. Yeah. I just created it, and when it turns,
even if it's fabricated.
Or it's embellished, right? I mean, there's sometimes where it is fake, and sometimes it's just embellished.
Yeah, true. And I mean, like I said, I think they're turning us against each other, because when I see me being like, not that you're old, I'm a little younger than you. I think that's,
I'm hearing this more and more. Can I say that?
Well, as the days go on, you get older. But anyway, I'm still young for the most part. I'm 26. But I see people my age and younger, they do a lot of things for attention. So I saw something on Facebook that someone shared this video. There was, a young white female at like the scene of a BLM protest that turned a little violent, and there was some property damage, and she was taking a picture in front of a broken like window on a building and stuff, and then she just turned around and like walked away. And I can't imagine like what she's gonna post that for, but does she actually care about that stuff? Because a lot of the times when I see it, the people committing these acts aren't the people that actually support the movement. For example, BLM, I see teenage white kids going around and smashing windows and stuff and saying, yeah, Black Lives Matter in the name of BLM.
Total excuse, right?
And it's an excuse just for them to act barbaric.
Well, specifically on BLM, specifically on them, there's a challenge there because, there's no card-carrying BLM members, right? So there's no membership, there's no tenants.
Yeah.
It's, you can sit there, you and I both could be BLM supporters. And we could have completely different agendas, completely different beliefs.
Exactly.
So it's great marketing. So, the Animal Liberation Front, right? Things like that. People for the ethical treatment of animals. Well, those sound great. Sign me up. What are they about? Oh, we're going to also break in the buildings. We're also going to burn some things down. I'm not so sure I'm into that, but so the challenge is when you have a great ring like Black Lives Matter, what do? You say no. You come up and you say, well, all lives matter, and you say, well, what are you saying? Are you reducing the Black Lives Matter movement? No, I'm not doing that. But yeah, you're 100%.
That's how it seems.
It's how it seems. Yeah. It's dangerous. And it can become problematic because now there's problems where there doesn't have to be problems.
Yeah.
So that's just on specifically that movement. It's an interesting one.
I know we we thought we were trying to stay broad, so we'll move on. But I completely agree with you, and that's what I was trying to get to. But I do want to get on to a couple other topics.
Let's do it.
So as you probably know, I'm a constitutionalist. I mean, I have the Constitution hanging on my wall right behind me. And I know a lot of people say times are changing nowadays, and so should the Constitution. It was written in the late 1700s, so it needs to adapt with us. Do you think the Constitution is outdated?
No,
I don't think so either.
I think it's. I think there were some very, very smart men.
100%.
That worked on that document.
Most brilliant men, I think, to ever walk the earth.
And you got to understand, the big evolution is they wanted to break away from the crown in England for several reasons. And they pretty much said, here's what we like, right? Here's what we want to keep, and here's what we want to do different.
Yeah.
And keep in mind, at the time, England was leading the world, biggest empire at the time. So they, of course, had years and years, hundreds and thousands of years of governmental evolution to get to where they were, and we just topped it.
Yeah.
So no.
So let me ask you this though: back then, the revolution, they, I don't want to say forced, but they caused a lot of violence and a lot of deaths. And the people on the British side were like, these people are, against our country. They are fighting us, just to have their freedom. They're being selfish. They're going against our laws. Doesn't that kind of sound like maybe the conservatives are the British side and the liberals are the American side in comparison to the revolution? They're the ones causing this violence, but maybe they're doing it in the name of a good cause, just like our founding fathers do. I mean,
well, no, because the founding fathers who were British, and under the crown, they did a little thing called declaring their independence. Okay, so they signed the document. They signed their own treason warrants. Okay, for death.
They created their own government.
They created their own government, and it was revolutionary. And they said, we are going to do this, and if you don't like it, then we're willing to fight for it. No. So
was
subversion, so Antifa, the anti-fascist movement, anybody that wants to subvert or change legislation or change America or throw out the Constitution, and they want to do it through force, whether it's burning or rioting or storming or what have you, until they sign their own Declaration of Independence and they say, hey, this state, this location, this neighborhood is going to be sovereign and we're going to fight for it, then no, I don't see any comparison.
So it's interesting you brought that up, on the riot. Let me ask you this. Do you think the riot was justified? I've talked about this on previous episodes.
We're talking about the Capitol riot. So that's an interesting one because I watched it live, right? And I actually took a few pictures right on the TV because
you never know if you're going to find that
right. And the Capitol's a big place.
Yeah.
It's a massive place. And you could have been a quote-unquote peaceful protester. Let's say you were the second, third wave on the other side of the property. You don't even see the downed orange fence, and you walk there and you get your selfie and you leave. were you a part of the riot? You have no idea.
But I'm saying the purpose of the riot. Like, do you think that maybe that was that the right thing
Well,
to
let me
do?
say this: it is not okay. What I just said with the Declaration of Independence, it's not okay to just walk up and try to overthrow a government.
Yeah.
If there were individuals there, which I think there were a few, right? I think there were definitely more than a few that went into that building that broke down and fought cops, made their way in looking to overthrow the government in whatever fashion. 100% not okay. But I think there was hundreds of thousands of people there, and not even all inside.
I think there was only a couple of thousand that were like actually, committing things, crimes and whatnot.
So, but I would never say that they were justified.
Yeah,
never.
That's what I was getting at, because I know a
Not
lot of
even
people
close.
that are conservative. They're like, they were just fighting for their freedom. First of all, that whole thing was kind of pointless, because that whole process, they weren't able to turn over the vote there anyway. It was kind of ceremonial. But I mean, we keep jumping into specific things, but I like the fact that we were talking about the Constitution, and a lot of people think it's up for interpretation, and it was just written as more of a guideline. I think we need to take it as it is, and it's pretty specific. So
it's very specific, and I'm kind of with you. I think that there's only supposed to be SCOTUS is supposed to interpret something that is deemed that someone appeals and follows their motions and say that this law or this action or whatever is unconstitutional.
Yeah.
They're the ones, and that's why it's a very strict process that we vet them and confirm
100%, yeah.
So, but when I and I'm not a constitutional attorney or scholar, but I'm a regular Joe, and I read it, and I don't have a hard time understanding it.
No, yeah, me neither.
It's pretty clear.
Like I said, I showed you, like, I keep a little
and I think people should read it.
Absolutely. And that's one thing that I was getting at. I was discussing it with somebody, and of course I always have to share my opinion, because as are you, I'm very opinionated. And someone was making that argument, like, it's super old, it's outdated, all this stuff. And I'm like, all right, well, let me ask you something. Have you ever read the Constitution? And they were like, no. How are you going to make that argument and you've never read the Constitution? But I mean, there's so many great things in there. Like,
well, they heard it was old, and they heard that.
Yeah, they heard it from the media,
right?
Like you said, that's neither here nor there. But anyway, so getting into the Constitution, the First Amendment, it's a big issue today. Not the amendment itself, but the underlying meanings of it and whatnot. So I know you were the one that mentioned to me previously about compelled speech. So,
yes.
What's the difference between free speech and compelled speech, or how do they compare?
Well, if you have free speech, you also that includes quote unquote hate speech, right? Which is a new title, offensive speech, anything like that. So if you're gonna have freedom, you gotta have freedom, right? You can't. You're gonna risk and you're going to offend people. And everybody's tolerance to offense is different. So, and I think that especially, look, the conversation we just had where we're talking about, was it this, was it that, we're criticizing others, we're criticizing ourselves, we're criticizing the issue, and we also can criticize our government. We can do that here.
Yeah. That's
incredible.
Which is awesome, yeah.
It's incredible. So, so anything that isn't total freedom is definitely compelled speech, and you can't say this, you can't say that, and that's very, very problematic.
Yeah,
as I see it.
So now I feel like we're reaching this point, and I'm not too educated on this topic, but the Canadian Bill C-16, I think this is like the underlying basis of it, which I believe it got passed, if I'm not mistaken. But now people in Canada are, by law, forced, I know that sounds like aggressive, but forced to use whatever pronouns one wishes. So if I tell you I want you to call me, I'm going to make a new one, axe, that's a new pronoun. You are forced by law to call me axe. Is that, am I like grasping that?
That's
because that sounds insane to me, but that's what I interpret it as.
Because it is. So that's my understanding of it. I don't know where it's at now. I know it was huge in the news with the gentleman Jordan Peterson, because he's a professional, he's a clinical psychologist, and he pretty much has become famous by saying no.
Is he still a professor?
I don't know if he's teaching.
Wouldn't be surprised if they fired him, honestly, which is ridiculous. But.
Right. Well, I don't think he has to teach anymore. I think he just took his classroom to the internet, okay, and his books. But he was made famous because he said no. He said no, that's not freedom. And I think that's where people, like I said, when I think we've gotten so safe. We've gotten so safe as a country, as a community, that now our focus has turned from actual safety and actual governance over to what's most important is people's feelings.
Yeah.
Now I'm not going to advocate and tell people we should go around and be mean to people and to call people bad things. But I tell you, that's a very short-lived way to live your life.
Yeah.
Okay. Because nobody, no one's going to want to be friends with you.
Mm-hmm.
But to have the government step in. And the government to tell you what you can and can't say. I think it's really problematic.
This goes down to the basis of my name, Thomas Jefferson's quote: "I prefer dangerous freedom over peaceful slavery."
Absolutely.
And you know what I always tell people? I think it's kind of funny when it comes to that, and I know it's a little more generalized, but I tell people like, "Oh, like, do you like zoos?" And most people like on the left are like, "No, like, it's terrible. They keep these animals in cages and stuff. They need to be out in the wild." I'm like, well, they give the animals shelter and protection and food and all this stuff, so they're safe there. And they're like, yeah, but that's not freedom. Like, they should be able to fend for themselves. And I'm like, welcome to capitalism. You know what I mean?
That's a pretty. I'd have to really think and dissect that one because it's pretty straightforward.
It's very straightforward, yeah. And again, like I said, that's just an example, and I know people are going to tear that apart, but
it's a good one.
I'm
trying to, and I can't.
Someone said it to me today, like, "Oh, so you just prefer people to fend for themselves and fail for themselves?" And I said, "Yes, I don't want government intervention." You know what I mean? It creates incentive and all this stuff. But
I'll tell you what definitely deters family environment. Before the safety nets, you took care of your parents. You took care of your kids. Mm-hmm. You worked out your relationship differences.
Interesting.
I
never thought about that.
Now, it's now. Listen, you're a single parent. I'm not even gonna say mother. You're a single parent, and you're struggling with a job. You fill out the right paperwork. You have the right stats. You're gonna get housing. You're gonna get medical. The safety nets are there. So
you know what? You just convinced me. I'm quitting my job and I'm gonna make more money on welfare. I just decided. Yeah. So get ready for that, everybody. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, I mean, back on freedom of speech. Do you think it's actually in jeopardy right now in today's society?
Yeah, I think it is. I'm not a doomsday so negative on it. I think that it will. We're starting to wake up to it. I mean, here you had back in January a sitting president who was canceled on Twitter and Facebook.
I was just about to mention that.
Okay, yeah. So you don't have to like him. You don't have to like him at all. You can hate him.
Yeah.
And you can vote him out. You can impeach him, whatever. But you just took away his ability to speak to people. And you can say it's a private company, they can do what they want. Yes, you can, but then the challenge is they treat people differently. Mm-hmm. So now is that okay for the company to treat its users differently? Because we've seen it before. It is. Is it lawful discrimination? It's why are you discriminating against mm-hmm. me? So but yes, I think that I don't think it's going to be a doomsday. I don't think we're going to lose it forever. But I think that it's going to take the people to realize that when they do open their mouth and they get deplatformed and things like that happen, they're
going to open their eyes.
They're going to open their eyes, and maybe we'll get freedom. We'll get the First Amendment freedom back. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, I hope so. Even Amazon is starting to do that too. I forget who it was, but there was a book on transgender dysphoria. You're not allowed to say that anymore, but right. I think that's what it used to be called. Okay. I think that's what this book was on. It's no longer sold on Amazon because it's hate speech. But I mean,
yeah,
I'm sure you can get books on why cops are evil, and we should.
Right, you should be able to go online and find and purchase, Mein Kampf from Hitler.
It's history.
I don't particularly plan on doing that. I don't want to. I don't like what he stood for. Mm-hmm. But okay, where's the freedom? You should be able to. You should be able to make because someone has to draw a line. Like that's an easy one. Mm-hmm. Almost everybody will say, yeah, we're not about it. But what about some things that aren't quite that extreme. Now someone's got to draw the line. Drawing lines are not good if you want freedom.
I hate making exceptions, and that's why that comes into the argument for, you know, the Second Amendment, for example. There's especially in New Jersey, there's so many restrictions that gun owners face. Where and who decides where that line is, and, you know, can you make exceptions to different constitutional rights? For example, I know this new bill is trying to put a tax on gun owners. I think it's like $800 a year.
Horrible.
It's insane. What if I said to you, what if a cop comes to your house, knocks on your door, and I use this reference all the time. It says, hey, I'm going to come search your house, and you say, well, where's your warrant? And I said, well, did you pay your $800 tax for your Fourth Amendment right? He said, no, then I don't need a warrant. I mean, that sounds ridiculous, so why doesn't this sound ridiculous? And I'm not even saying I'm against some, you know, different laws, gun laws and stuff, because I support a lot of them, but it's the point of taking away a constitutional right that easily. And I always say, once they take away our right to bear arms, that's our right to protect ourselves, then they can take away whatever they want.
Well, you're right. There's a whole lot there. It's but the first thing on the fee or the tax or whatever it is, that's hugely problematic. And your example is great. So the way I see the challenge with discussing this things with people is the focus is going to be on guns. If that's not the issue, what you just described, the issue, what you just described, is that we are taxing a constitutional right, and your example exposed that. You know, it just makes me think, you know, take it to Facebook. You want to use Facebook? Got to have a Facebook license.
Okay. And we're not far from that, I don't think. Taxing the First Amendment.
You want a lawyer? Well, you're going to have to pay him, but you're also going to have to pay the fee. You want to go to church? You got to pay the fee.
Yep.
Okay. That is wildly ridiculous. That's problematic. That is not. It's very easy to say something isn't constitutional. I'm wondering where that would be constitutional.
It's not. So
okay.
But like with the Second Amendment too, I know you always mention you know, it was 15 rounds, right? And just recently, in 2018, it switched to 10 rounds.
Yeah. If
was it higher than 15 at one point? I was probably too young.
Well,
that time.
Well, yeah. You know, nowhere in the very short amendment, which is the second, does it talk about how many guns you can have, how many rounds. And I don't remember. I wish I knew the exact case, but there's a Supreme Court case that says you can place reasonable regulation, reasonable restrictions on the Second Amendment. The problem with that is
who determines?
There's the problem.
Yeah.
There's the problem, because I can sell you. I don't know how much, you know, every viewer or listener rather is different with their knowledge with guns, but I can sit here and tell you, you know, the argument was, well, you know, unlimited rounds. Just imagine the damage that can be done. Yeah, I agree. You know, unlimited ammo, you know, belt fed or whatever. That sounds dangerous. Let's reduce it. Okay, let's go to 15. Yeah, you know what? Because at 15 they're gonna have to reload. Yeah, let's do that. Oh, now we're down to 10 because now, you know what, we just reduced all those deaths by 33%. And then guess what? There was, you know, some Second Amendment people, they sued. It went to district court, and in a split decision, 2-1, the judges, they ruled and they said, listen, this New Jersey law is not limiting the amount of ammo. It's not limiting the amount of magazines. It's not limiting the amount of guns. It's just limiting the amount of bullets in your magazine and your gun at one point. So they left it. Now that's terrifying, because listen, if you want to write a referendum or a bill, if you're, you know, in the New Jersey legislature, guess what? That's there you go. Now you can drop it down to 5. Now you just knocked out revolvers. There's, you know, most of them are 6 shots. Now you're down to that. Now you can drop it down to 1. Nothing's going to stop it. You have your Second Amendment. You have your
back to the flintlocks.
You're back to flintlocks. You know, think about it. You know, it's terrifying.
So, are you saying that there shouldn't be any like restrictions on guns?
Here's the challenge. We've already started down this road of regulating guns so much that it's almost hard to reverse it, right? So the challenge is, what we're viewing all the legislation, all the situation, all the restrictions based upon the society that we know and love, right? And we're familiar with. We all grew up in this. But societies change. They evolve. They change. Just look at how women once dressed, how men once dressed. It doesn't have to just be women. How we dress now Just look at how we once danced versus how we dance now.
Yeah.
So we look at everything in a snapshot of right now. So it is hard. It will be hard to reverse. Like for example, if you just said no more gun restrictions, no more Second Amendment, that's what you get. Everybody can get everything. Everybody can have anything. I tell you what you have is you'd have a big learning curve. You have a big learning curve in a bloodbath for, I'm going to make it up, maybe 2 weeks, right?
Yeah.
But guess what? Now you have new society norms, because now everybody knows if you take your gun out of the holster, you might have 5 more looking at you, you know?
True.
And I think that's where it's hard to say what can and shouldn't happen. But in the perfect world, if, with society, if you didn't worry about moving this ball down the road, so to speak, then I would even go and say felons. They served their time. If they were so dangerous, they should still be locked up. So here's
I have to disagree with you.
Okay,
with
fine.
That one.
But guess what? How long do you think a felon that's so dangerous that gets released and he has a gun, how long do you think he will last if everyone else has a gun?
You mean if there's like no laws and
no
stuff
laws,
like that?
No laws. Second Amendment. There it is.
That's hard to say. Well,
think about it. Think about it. So this guy, he's so dangerous. He's so big and bad.
People don't know he's a felon. He's just an average Joe because everybody can have a gun. So he's just walking down the street. It could be you. It could be me. You don't know if I'm a felon.
So if he's
also committed gun, broken gun laws?
If he's so big and bad, why is he out? Why is he walking?
Because you get your sentence at the beginning, don't you? He could still be an asshole.
What? I'm not following. If he's so, I just go back to it. If he's such a threat to society, why is he walking around?
I understand what you're saying, but he wasn't a threat before he committed the crime, was he?
Well.
And then once he commits the crime, now he's a felon, and now he's a criminal. So he wasn't a criminal a second before he committed that crime. Is
he always a threat then?
When I don't know. Is he? That's what I'm trying to say.
I don't think so. I think
because you won't know until he gets out, and now he's not a threat because they released him. He hasn't committed a crime in 20 years, and then he does.
So
this is all hypothetical, of course.
That's the challenge. Is we are not going to legislate our way out of people harming other people.
Yeah,
it's not going to happen.
So there's more specific cases. So, for example, in England, people had guns and whatnot at one point, and they had one school shooting.
Right.
One.
Right.
Boom. Done. You guys ruined it. No more guns across the country. They've never had a school shooting ever again. And they look at us like we're morons because we have so many school shootings. And I agree. I think it's terrible that, why do we still allow these rifles that are so commonly used for school shootings? Why do we? And most of the guns that do commit these school shootings are legally owned guns because they're, the gun owners' children maybe that are distressed and stuff. So why are we allowed to do that? Why are we allowing these school shootings to happen?
I would say you got to look at the amount of guns that don't go on that school shooting versus the amount that do, right?
Yeah, but one should be enough. You know what I mean? That fraction could be as small as you want it to be.
It is very unfortunate when someone loses their life, especially is murdered. I sit there and I go, we have a lot of bomb control. We have a lot of bomb control. You can't have a bomb. Can't go to the bomb store. Can't get it. Okay? And yet we have Timothy McVeigh kill a few hundred people in the federal building. We have airplane control. Yeah, we had 14 hijackers, I think, maybe 14, kill almost 3,000 Americans in one morning. So I don't sit there and think that we're going to control people's intent with legislation. I don't think it's going to happen. And I just think of the hundreds of millions of guns that we have. Yeah, some of them are doing bad things in bad people's hands. But, I don't think when you bring up England, how they haven't had an active shooter since that one episode, as that's an example to take everyone's freedoms away. Because if you do that, you might as well take away people's First Amendment. We talk about that.
Yeah, but the First Amendment right's not necessarily taking lives like that. Well, especially children's lives in a school.
I don't know. Hitler, he used his First Amendment, and a lot of people died.
Listen, I feel like I need to clarify. I agree with you on a lot of gun laws, but I wouldn't be doing a good job if I didn't,
I love
combat your thoughts.
No, I love it.
I agree with you.
It's
I'm a gun owner.
we have to have freedom, and guess what? We have to go back to it. And I think the trend is starting. There's many states that are expanding constitutional carry, right? So a lot of them are saying, the Constitution is it, and like I said, there'll be some learning curves. It would be inevitable, especially all of a sudden there was something you couldn't have, and now you can have it. So now you're going to get it, and you're going to behave a little different. But as society evolves, as generations happen, I don't think that big bad criminal, perhaps this is, he would have been checked, rehabilitated, or maybe even stopped permanently way before he makes it to the point where, in the scenario that he served time and he got out in the street and then he decided to use a gun.
Yeah.
I mean, they're already doing it. And guns are.
And a lot of it is, illegal guns that are committing most of the gun crimes, but
most of them, yes.
People don't realize that. And
absolutely.
I mean, yeah, where I work. I haven't mentioned where I work, but I haven't come across one legal gun, but I've come across many, many illegal guns. And that.
I was fortunate enough that I've had conversations with people who have been arrested and been charged with illegal possession of guns, illegal guns, the guns that they weren't lawfully allowed to possess. And it was really funny because I'll ask them, do they know exactly which laws they're breaking? And they don't.
Yeah.
Hey, did you hear about this new law? We just reduced it from 15 rounds to 10 rounds. Did you know about that? No, I didn't know about that. It's as far as many criminals are concerned, they know that they're breaking laws. They don't even sometimes they don't even know the exact ones.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a problem with the person, and we could go into depth about this a lot, but like I said, I need to make clear I am pro Second Amendment, but again, these are some arguments that I've listened to, and I think they do make sense. So I feel a need to bring it up too when I listen to people that have the same opinion as me. But I'd like to move on and finish up with something that everybody's probably dying to hear. Talk about President Trump and President Biden, a couple of pros and cons. If and there's one question that I feel like I need to start off with. Do you think President Trump lost the election of 2020?
Oh, that's a good one. Well, I think it's clear he's not the president. So okay. I think I don't subscribe to any conspiracy theories that he's running the show at the Mar-a-Lago. I think that there's anomalies. There was definitely anomalies, and I think it's horrible that of all the lawsuits filed in different courts between Trump, his team, and the party, almost none of them were heard. And I don't know if it. I don't know. I can't apply motive on the judges. I'm not a judge.
Yeah.
I don't know every single specific one. I just stick with the facts, which is very, very few of the complaints that were filed were even entertained. And I think that's why the question can't easily be answered, because I don't know. I know who's sitting in the White House.
Yeah.
Right. I know who's called president and who's called Mr. I know that for sure. But yeah, I really don't know.
So I mean, I trust our system a little bit more than you do, I guess. I think he lost. I mean, there's a couple different speculations that could go into it. Do I think it was rigged? Not on the level that all these conspiracy theorists are saying, but I do think that COVID had a negative impact on the election, and if COVID didn't happen, we would have seen a different result. But yes, I know that Trump lost. Obviously, like you said, President Biden is in the White House right now, so that tells you what you need to know. But yeah, I mean, that whole election fraud and whatnot, if you want to discuss.
Yeah, well, it's a tough one because you have 50 states and a couple territories, right? Mm-hmm. And some of them are crucial. And when you think about it that way, I don't think anybody can sit there and say, I mean, factually, it was definitely not stolen, or it was definitely stolen. Okay, support it. Well,
yeah, that's the thing. You need to show the evidence.
That is the hard part, and the part that's a little bit frustrating is that, like I said, if the complaints weren't heard and evidence or supposed evidence on the side of the complainants, which would have been Trump, right? If you won't let that be presented, you won't hear it, then how can we all sit here and that's that side. That's the Republicans, the president saying stolen, and the other one saying no, it wasn't. And we're sitting here going, well, let's present some things. Let's hear it. Nah, we're not gonna do that. So yeah, I think it's an anomaly. It's crazy. Listen, there's a lot of people that are very, very, very sure that it was stolen.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I don't know.
I don't think it was, at least not the way people are claiming it to be. That could be a whole other discussion. But I do love to criticize the president, the sitting president. And I know Trump's not the sitting president anymore, but I do want to criticize him right now and get your opinion. So let's be honest. He's not a very good person. So let me try to phrase this. Obama, awesome person. He was like, an awesome speaker, great personality. Everybody loved him, but I didn't like his policies. Trump, on the other hand, I hate him. He's an asshole. He doesn't know how to talk, and he gets himself into some holes, and that lost him the election, in my opinion. But I liked his policies. So, I mean, where do you stand with that? How do you vote for someone that has all these, accusations against them for sexual assault? Accusations for tax evasion, for the accusation, like I'm saying accusation because none of it's proven technically, but inciting that riot, for getting people all riled up and lying to them, telling them stop the steal, and now people praise him as a god. Why would anybody do that? Me, I kneel for no man, and I don't know how you feel about that, but people, they just put a golden statue of Donald Trump in Florida, and people were praising him like a god. That is insane. He's an asshole.
It's good too.
So he might have had good policies, but you can't credit that even to Trump. That's why I understand, yes, I voted for him because I liked his policies, but that's not only him. That's his team and his administration. I voted for the administration, not the person. So I'm not asking you to disclose who you voted for, but
yeah, there's a lot there, Zach.
I know. I'm sorry. I just threw so many things at you.
No, it's okay. Let's see. I'll start broad with that. So I sit there and I go, who decides who is a good and who's a bad person? Who decides who's the the moral one and who isn't? So that automatically makes me a little bit reserved, because I go,
Well, what about your opinion though?
I think I disagree with that. I think Trump was an incredible speaker. He speaks at the 6th grade level. And no, it's a fact, right? With this,
it's just funny to hear.
It's been analyzed, but you have to understand, not everyone is educated and eloquent, and not everyone can follow what the president says. Okay, President Obama, he was very charismatic, but it comes to an opinion, because I also think that the President Trump is very charismatic, and it's funny because the more people he meets, the more people they love him. It happens. It's easy to look at him and say, and it's also funny because people can criticize a lot of his speech and they didn't hear it. They got it secondhand from the media. Mm-hmm. They got it secondhand in a tweet.
I don't think he incited that riot, but I know a lot of people do say that he did, and legally, I don't think there's any proof that he literally said peacefully. So I was just, I'm fighting for the people that may disagree with me or you.
Yeah. I think he's authentic. I think he's genuine.
Yeah, but shouldn't he be more professional? He's the leader of the free world. Shouldn't he act a little more professional?
Okay.
Yeah, you thought I was going to say something.
I got excited. I'll say what people say for years is he's not presidential. He doesn't say presidential things. Mm-hmm. And I stop and I have to ask, I said, who sets the standard on what's presidential?
The president.
The president. Okay, so if he calls a retired porn star horse face, okay.
But do you want your president saying that? That's embarrassing to other countries. He's supposed to be the most powerful man in the world, which I don't think that he is, and I hate that people try to make it be that, because our government is supposed to be separated through 3 branches. But regardless, if people think he's the most powerful man in the world and he's calling a porn star a horse face, well, come on. No, if that was my son, I
can answer that. So
not that I have a son.
You have to ask what was the question before he made that comment, right? I want a president that will fight back, and we're talking about words, okay?
Yeah, no. So, I know we discuss feelings. And,
exactly. So we're talking about words. I want a president. I want the leader of the free world. I want the commander-in-chief of our military that protects our way of life and ourselves. I want him to be able to step up and use words. And sometimes the words are offensive, and they'll garner attention.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm going to have to defer to the man who's in those shoes. And so I want him to speak what he has to say in the way he wants to say it, and I don't want his message to be lost. So I'm going to sit there. I'm going to back it. I'm going to back it. And that might be wildly surprising or offensive to some people, but I would do the same thing to any president.
Yeah.
Any American.
Yeah, party I don't think really matters. It just tends to be that the Republican Party has more issues that I agree with. But all right, so we're talking words and stuff. What about other things like for example, like I mentioned, the tax evasion and stuff like that. And you mentioned that he like cares about the people. Well, you didn't say that exactly, but what I'm trying to ask is, do you actually think he cares about, the little people?
I have no doubt. And in fact,
but he's a businessman and he's just trying to make money, right? Like that's what he was all about.
Well, businesses aren't successful if they don't care about their people or their product or their customers. It's just how capitalism works. If you trash your workers, they're not going to be very loyal, and they're certainly not going to give you 100% or anything close. And they'll probably sue you. They'll probably, put up contract fights and yada yada. Your customers are going to leave. Because especially if there's other competitors, they're out. And I have spoken to, as what I do is I ask people questions. I've spoken to a lot of former Trump employees. From protection details to casino details, to hospitality in the casinos. I spoke to a number of them, and many of them don't particularly like him, and many do. And then I ask, well, what was the quality of life?
They don't like him. You said.
Some do not, and they'll sit there. I mean, I was close with one gentleman. He was one of the named persons in a union dispute and a salary issue and all this, and he had sued Trump, and he was not happy with the result and how it all went down, and it bothered him greatly. However, he ends up voting for him. Okay, so it's a wildly interesting thing, but I've run into people that feel many different ways about him, but I don't think that he would be successful. He wouldn't be good if he's going around screwing everybody. I don't think that that's a recipe for success.
Yeah.
Well, or at least not long term.
I think he just, honestly, you said you like it that he speaks his mind and stuff, but I think maybe he needs a little bit of a filter, because if he filtered himself a little bit more and didn't shoot off on Twitter, like some of the things he tweeted was a little crazy, you have to admit.
Like what?
I think he'd be...
Like what?
I don't know anything specific. I mean, I can't even pull up his Twitter, can I, to like check, because he doesn't have it anymore.
Sad, right? Because now what's the reality? Now the reality is he said and did bad things. Because and then we say, well, let's go back to the history. Oh, no, we erased it. So it's just...
And we can't learn from it.
It's just how I said it. He's horrible.
What about Biden? Do you think he's a good person?
I am not the judge of whether people are good people or not. Okay?
You could have an opinion, though. But
again, the good person versus bad person. I can say people do good things, people do bad things. I'm going to give him his shot that he deserves.
Absolutely, and I hope he's the best president the United States has ever
right,
seen.
because who wins? America wins.
Yep.
So so we'll be behind him insofar as motivation and hope. If he starts to do things that violate the Constitution or challenge it or risk it or whatever, then we should all use our First Amendment and peacefully protest that issue.
Absolutely.
We're not gonna. You can't sit there
use
and
the Second Amendment.
You can't storm it. You can, and you also shouldn't be impeaching him because you don't like him.
Yeah.
You can't do that.
No, I mean, I don't care if my plumber's an asshole as long as he fixes my toilet. You know what I mean? But
right. You should want the best plumber that gets the job done, right? That gets
the job done, exactly.
You care what your plumber looks like or where they're from?
Not at all.
All right, just check it.
You got to ask. But honestly, like Biden, he's been saying he's going to do all these things, and he's done some of them, but he just bombed Syria. And that a lot of people on the left are a little upset about that because he said he wasn't going to. I'm kind of surprised, like happily surprised, I guess I could say. It shows he has balls. I mean, he missed completely, but that's besides the point. But he did it, which is very surprising.
So here's where I'm gonna put my money where my mouth is. I do not know the value of the target. I don't know the reason he quote unquote pulled the trigger. I don't know those things. So instead of me just looking at the fact that a trigger was pulled and there was an effect, and therefore it must be right, it must be wrong, I'm going to be a little mature and say I don't have all the facts. I don't know what he was. I don't know the intel. I don't know the situation. So I just don't know. But I do agree with you that some people's reactions are not quite that thought out, and it's he said he wouldn't. Now I'm offended, or that's not right. If Trump did it, you bring up some good points. People will react differently, but I try to reserve.
Take it as it goes. That's
what
I do. Take every situation as it.
Yeah,
as
let
it
the
goes.
facts present themselves.
Exactly.
Yeah, because it was a use of force. That's what it was.
Yeah.
So let's wait and see.
Yeah, I mean, from my understanding, I literally read on it very briefly, but because it kind of made me chuckle when I read the headline. I was just like, that's kind of funny that he did
Makes
that.
me nervous.
But,
I'll tell you that.
I honestly think it was him puffing his chest out. I think we got a couple threats, and he was just like, you know what? They think I'm soft, and if that's the case, I don't know the details, of course,
right.
but if that's the case, I respect it. I don't hate the fact that he did it. And I mean, the good side is the pilot was a biracial transgender, so it was the most woke bomb ever dropped in history, which is amazing.
Well, I didn't know that. I don't know
if that's true.
So that's we should all celebrate that.
I do know that it had a transgender flag and BLM written on it. So
have you noticed that every first of everything gets celebrated?
Yeah.
So it's honestly, I think it's.
I love it.
Do you? I'm running out of things firsts to celebrate, But.
Well, I mean, there's a first for everything, so better make it count. But I feel like we're almost in a comedy sometimes when I read the news headlines, because I do try to laugh about it. It's very serious, and people say I don't want politics to run my life. Neither do I. It's important to stay updated, and it's important to live your life how you want. But I don't know. I think it's so funny, and I want to bring that humor to other people, but also educate them at the same time.
Yeah, I love it. I think we should have conversations. We should be able to offend each other and laugh it off, and realize that just because we laugh or we offend someone doesn't mean that we hate them. We want to harm them. I mean, look at the comedy community. That's what comedy's supposed to be. You're not supposed to have to filter your jokes.
Yeah.
You should get
It's
excited.
starting to get that way.
The comedians, get excited when someone pops up "F you" and leaves out. I'm doing it right.
Yeah.
So I think that's where we should be. We should be First Amendment. We should be saying what we believe and not have fear that we're going to be canceled, attacked, or killed for it.
And I think that's a good place to end it.
It's very simple. How the YouTube algorithm works is you have to share. You got to share it. You got to share it. Likes are good. You got to share it. Thanks.